Sarah Westwood, whom you can follow on Twitter at Sarah C. Westwood, is the investigative reporter with the Washington Examiner. Good morning, Sarah. How are you for our Friday chat? Can you hear me, Sarah?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, good. I want to begin by reading to you. Okay, we'll get it fixed. I want to read to you Roger Altman, what he said about what happened last weekend, and then compare it with what Janet Yellen said yesterday. What the authorities did over the weekend, by the way, he's the chair of Evercore, which is the fourth largest investment bank in the country. What the authorities did over the weekend was absolutely profound. They guaranteed the deposits, all of them, at Silicon Valley Bank. And what that really means, and they won't say it, and I'll come back to that, what that really means is that they have guaranteed the entire deposit base of the U.S. financial system, the entire deposit base. Why? Because you can't guarantee all the deposits in Silicon Valley Bank, and the next day say to depositors at First Republic, sorry, yours aren't guaranteed. Of course they are. And so this is a breathtaking step which effectively nationalizes or federalizes the deposit base of the U.S. financial system. There's more. Is that the talk of Congressional Hill, Sarah Westwood? Because it is an extraordinary change in 1 week.
It certainly was leading up to that hearing yesterday with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. And, it was remarkable that she said that's not going to be the policy of this administration. The federal government is not going to insure all deposits, but it's really, really the Biden administration has backed themselves into a corner. You almost wonder if this was a snap decision because Silicon Valley Bank is, uniquely elite, right? Most of its customers were very wealthy, very liberal venture capitalists and tech entrepreneurs. That's not the sort of people that the Biden administration wants to look on the side of. If you have a smaller reach bank with, mom and pop shops as your depositors, and the Biden administration says that they're not going to bail out that bank, months down the road, how is the administration going to justify that? So I do think they've backed themselves into a corner where they may have to sort of guarantee all deposits moving forward.
Congressman Ro Khanna was on the program yesterday, Sarah Westwood, and said, everybody is ollie in free. And then Janet Yellen shows up 3 hours later and says, no, it depends on whether your failure is contagion. That means they're picking winners and losers. And that means we need to know who lobbied the White House from Signature Bank and SVB over the weekend. Do we have any idea who the depositors called or how often they called? Because they must have had every lobbyist on K Street working all last weekend.
Well, we know that Governor Gavin Newsom was likely among those who were sort of working behind the scenes to try to get a bailout for California. But what's interesting about what Yellen said, right, is that the board of the FDIC, of the Federal Reserve, the Treasury Department has to decide whether these banks are too big to fail. SVB and Signature Bank both specifically lobbied to have the too big to fail designation taken off of them. Both of those banks argued that they should not be considered too big to fail, that they were just regional lenders, that they didn't have the sort of exposure and scope of the banks on Wall Street that do have that designation, that have to submit to the stress tests and all of the other requirements of Dodd-Frank. And in 2018, those regulations were rolled back. So SVB is a bank that promised if something ever happened to them, it wouldn't need a bailout. And then as soon as something really did materialize, they went to Washington begging for one.
Now, Patrick McHenry is chairman of House Banking or House Financial Services.